What's up, guys? This is Skers Scoop. We're going to be talking about a little football, basketball, recruiting news as well. So it's just the three of us. We each own Instagram pages that revolve around these topics, and we feel pretty confident that we can give you guys some stuff that you'd like to hear. So we'll go ahead and start. Today's video is just going to be kind of a lot about Nebraska basketball. With the season winding down, there's a lot on the line. We'll recap UCLA. We'll talk about Iowa. And then kind of where things are looking to shake out on the Big Ten tournament. So we'll get started with UCLA. Guys, this was a game that maybe they weren't expected to win, but no one really thought was going to go this bad. It looked like maybe they had a chance to bring it back within kind of a competitive game and just never got the opportunity to do that. Never took advantage of that opportunity, at least. So, Brody, I guess you want to start. Just offer your thoughts, what you thought was good, what you thought was bad from that.
Yeah, there's not too much good, I'll be honest. That was kind of not a great showing. But going into the LA trip, I just wanted to split it. And obviously, the way it ended with the 20-point loss, not a happy split, but we're still fine. We're in a good spot. I mean, every team has those games, and it just happened to have it late in the season for us. We're lucky that Kansas lost to an unranked opponent, Arizona State, and also Texas Tech also lost to an unranked opponent that night. So that still clears our path for the OKC first round, which is huge for us, and we won't lose any seeding. But, I mean, it's still worrisome for this upcoming game. You got to figure your stuff out, and you can't have any more stinkers the rest of the year because you're in March. This is where it all matters now. So,
yeah, I'd agree there. It is, you're right. Everybody has a game like this where you have a stinker. Unfortunately, it's at the end of the year when the team needs to be getting hot. I'd say personally, the team was pretty hot at the beginning of the year. It seems like they've kind of tapered off a little bit. I just think they need some of that, some of the play they had from Jamarcus Lawrence and Rink Mass at the beginning of the year, where they're, you could depend on them to be your lead scorer with over 20 points a night instead of always depending on Price Sanford. Because we didn't have a single guy over 20 points. We had, I think, 3 guys over 10, Rink Mass, Cale Jacobson, and Sam Hoiberg. And like I told you guys, when Cale Jacobson's one of your leading scorers, you probably didn't have the best night. Nothing against Cale, but that's just not his role in the team. His role is to not be a scorer. And when you're kind of forcing him to be a scorer, it's probably going to be a bad shooting night all around. But yeah, nothing against Cale Jacobson. He's a great player, but yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I definitely think the things that stick out, if we kind of dial it back a little bit, they started out the year hot. Mass looked like an all Big Ten player. Lawrence was scoring at a high level. Those guys kind of faded away so far, towards the back end of February. I looked it up, and I think the last time Rink's been over 13 points was against Purdue when he had 18. And, whether it's injury, whether it was the flu, really since that Michigan game, it just seems like the offense has really kind of gone with Price Sanford, I would say. And like you said, you can't reliably ask, Sam Hoiberg and Cale Jacobson to be those types of players that fill in for those points that other players aren't providing. So I don't know. They need to get something figured out. I think Iowa's a good spot. They're heavy favorites at home, and I think they should be. But they'll kind of have to answer the call. Do you guys have any more thoughts left on that?
I mean, all I really got is I think the biggest key is obviously, yes, Mass needs to get going. But Jamarcus Lawrence hasn't been like the same him since that Michigan game. And I really think if we can have a huge game from him on Sunday, it would just be huge for the entire mojo of the team, including him. Because since the Michigan game, when he had 20, he got to 16 once in that Purdue overtime loss. But other than that, his highest point total is 12, which is kind of his role. But, I mean, there have been so many times this year where he's taken over and just, I don't know what's happened recently.
Sure.
Yeah, just another quick thing. I just think, I was so confident in this team at the beginning of the year because, every night it seemed like there was a different leading scorer and it was a guy over 20. And as of late, it's just been Price Sanford almost every night. I think Rink had a few 20-point games recently, but other than that, it's just been Price every game. And, Price is going to be probably a first team All Big Ten. But, you can't just depend on one guy every single night because, like I said, like we've all been talking about, Price had like kind of an off night. And if you're always depending on him, he has an off night, you're probably going to lose the game if you're always dependent on him. So,
sure. Yeah, I would absolutely say, kind of piggybacking off of that, they're getting ready to take on Iowa on Sunday. That when you look at that last game that they played in Iowa City, you definitely saw like the physicality that the Hawkeyes had, specifically guarding Price Sanford. It was tough. They only scored 52 points that game. For context, I pointed it out when we were talking beforehand, but Nebraska scored 51 points against USC in the second half. So it kind of shows you that they have the ability to score at a high level. And in these games that they've lost, they largely haven't scored at a high level. And whether that's from, the offense completely revolving around Price Sanford as of late, or, whatever you want to make up the excuse for, it's just they need to get it figured out, and they need to, rely on less than one, more than one person to score the ball. So I guess, Brody, if you want to offer anything on Iowa.
I mean, yeah, you kind of nailed it there. If you only watch Price Sanford for all the minutes he plays, he's constantly running around, yes, but the amount of times he's getting held is just insane. And obviously they can't call it every single time, so I'm not upset about that. It's just we need to look in another direction with our offense. And if he's not getting freed up, you have to find a way for someone else to get freed up. And I think that opens the way for Rink Mass or Jamarcus Lawrence to have a huge game. And I think if one of them two can get going Sunday, it would be absolutely huge. I think Price only needs 3 or 4 threes for the Big Ten record. So I really want him to get that, obviously. But I really want a huge game from Rink Mass or Jamarcus Lawrence to really end the season.
Yeah. I mean, I was at the Iowa Nebraska game and the last time they played, and it was just the entire time. Bennett Sturts was all over Price the entire game. I don't think Bennett came out of the game once. And, I feel like, for example, Bennett is Iowa's Price Sanford. He's going to score a bunch every single night. But, I mean, the thing is, he even scored 25 points the last time Nebraska and Iowa played, and Iowa still only scored 57. And so, like, if you can hold Bennett Sturts to under 20 points, I feel like, you're going to have a pretty good chance because I feel like Iowa's pretty dependent on Bennett Sturts, having a good night. But, yeah, again, they got to find somebody else to get some offense because, Iowa had a good game plan the last time they played Nebraska. They kept Price in check. So someone else is going to have to step up for sure.
Sure. I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts on this too. I just feel like, towards the beginning of the season, everybody was talking about how well Nebraska took care of the ball on the offensive side. And just as of lately, you look at the last time Nebraska played Iowa, they had 12 turnovers. I think Iowa had 12 as well. So you're not necessarily losing anything on that, but it is worthy of noting that, they're struggling to – guys are throwing bad passes, struggling to hold on to the ball, specifically when I'm looking at UCLA. I remember a couple of opportunities where guys, could have caught in a pass and it just went right between their hands. So against UCLA, they had 13 turnovers as well. What do you guys, I guess, think is making them maybe turn the ball over more at a high level? Do you think it's just because they're playing better teams down the stretch, or they're starting to figure out, how to guard Nebraska?
I think the main thing comes down to is a lot of times the freelance set would always get Price Sanford open on the top of the key or on a wing, and then they would move from there. With him getting locked up a lot more and not being as freed up, they start panicking a little bit. I think could be completely wrong, obviously, but I think it comes down to panicking. They just need to slow down and settle, and also just sometimes just a lack of communication. Because in the UCLA game at one point, Kale was going for a dribble handoff to Braden Frager, and Frager just ran away and turned his back, and Kale threw it away. There's just some miscommunication, and it almost feels like our guys are on the same page right now. And I feel like one, that'll easily be fixed, but two, if it doesn't get fixed, you're not going to get far in the tournament if you don't fix that. So
Yeah, and I watched the cinematic recaps, and I think at press conference too. Fred Hoiberg kind of said that they're getting sped up a lot. Defenses are forcing them to speed up and they just slow down because sometimes these turnovers aren't happening late in the shot clock. A lot of them are happening like pretty early on. So they just need to slow down, play their style of basketball. Don't let the defense dictate what you're doing. Yeah, and I know Fred Hoiberg's has a really good offensive mind. So I feel like he'll get something figured out, especially since, he's definitely noticing what we're all noticing. Price is kind of what their only offense right now. And they definitely have scores, they did at the beginning of the year. So just kind of, scheming something up to get somebody else the ball, kind of using Price as a decoy. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, we'll head into some Big Ten tournament situations now. Obviously, not a lot matters unless you win that game against Iowa. There's a lot riding on that right now. Seeding wise, Nebraska, we talked about it before, but they kind of have the opportunity to go anywhere from the 2 to the 5 or 6 seed. So there's a lot riding on that game on Sunday. So the easiest path to getting a more advantageous slate, is winning that game. But yeah, I guess Brody, if you're pretty well versed on it, so maybe just kind of tell everyone the outlook and maybe specifically more what's riding on the Iowa game.
Of course. So if we win against Iowa, we are confirmed a triple bye. What it really comes down to is the Michigan State-Michigan game Sunday as well. And if Michigan wins that, we get the 2 seed over Michigan State and Illinois because of our tiebreaker against them. And that's the best path because you avoid Illinois, Purdue, and Michigan until the championship. And we would have most likely UCLA or Indiana in the quarterfinals. And then Wisconsin, Michigan State have to play each other before we get them. And I really want to avoid Wisconsin right now. And getting that 2 seed instead of the 3 seed would just be huge because we beat Wisconsin by 30 early in the season, yes, but they just look like a whole new team now and they're firing on all cylinders and I really want to avoid them. And all you really got to worry about is beating Michigan State and you can lock in that 3 seed in March Madness, which would just be huge for us.
Yeah, you bring up Nebraska playing Wisconsin earlier in the year and beating it by 30. I would say both of our teams compared to now are kind of in exact opposite spots. I don't think we're as bad as probably Wisconsin was at that point in their season, but we just need to figure it out. I mean, if we play like we did against Wisconsin in that first time we played them, I think we can beat anybody in the country if the team is firing on all cylinders. So, yeah, like you said, we got to beat Iowa because that'll get us that triple bye, which would be super important. And again, this is crazy to be talking about. We were a team that was picked 14th preseason in the Big Ten. So, I would love to get a triple bye because that would just be amazing. But, I'm just happy the Huskers are here because, we're not a basketball school. So all of this year has just been kind of new territory for all of us basketball fans too.
Yeah, I agree. Honestly, it's super refreshing to see, obviously the success that they're having. And I think to some extent, the reaction to the UCLA game from a lot of fans has been super negative because they're very, a lot of people are really tied into the program right now. But I don't think a lot of people remember that there's kind of been a lack of success from Nebraska basketball until really recently. So, I would never say it's excusable to lose by 20 points, but cutting them a little bit of slack, knowing that they have the opportunity still to be the 2 seed in the Big Ten tournament and, maybe a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. There's still so much good that the season has had so far. And as long as they can figure out a way to get back to kind of that January form, heading into March would be a big deal for them. And I think you're right, Elliot. I think they could have the opportunity to beat anyone in the country when they're playing like they did back then.
100%. And little throwback to the 2024 season, I believe we actually the 4th seed in the Big Ten tournament that year and got a double bye. So shockingly some familiar territory there. But that year we got to the semifinals and lost to Illinois. So
yeah, with Terrence Shannon Jr., he went off. I remember watching that game. He was just he was doing whatever he wanted against us that game. But yeah.
Okay. I guess unless you guys have anything else, that can kind of wrap it up for us. This has been the first video of Skers Scoop. So we'll look to maybe try and get at least 1 or 2 videos out a week. And this is the first one. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.